rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick Thomas. We're starting off the week. I hope everybody had a wonderful Mother's Day. I have to admit that it was kind of like Father's Day for me because Mom wanted, and by Mom I mean Mrs. Whiskey, wanted ribs, smoked ribs, and she specifically said over the charcoal. She didn't want it done like on the gas grill or anything like that. So I ended up having to monitor the smoker. In which case, I was able to get literally all the way through. And I really hate using the word literally because literally I would be literally telling you literally what was literal about literature. In this case, sorry. The book Outlaw Platoon by our very own Sean Parnell, who does the Battleground Live podcast. I was able to read through the entire book. And you know, for those of you like myself who may have served but not served in combat, and even for those of you who haven't served, you really don't know what the experience is going to be like. And I can tell you, Sean, through his description of a lot of the encounters that they had in the book throughout his term in Afghanistan, he definitely brought a lot of those feelings and the experience to the forefront. Although I'm going to definitely tell you that imagination in those kinds of situations cannot even come close to the real thing. I don't even think that they can really come close in terms of even in the movies. Because there's always some part of the brain, especially in dealing with movies, there's always some part of the brain that knows that it's fake. But even so, just reading his words and how he describes how he felt, the things that he was thinking, it kind of brings it to the forefront and the fold. And so I highly recommend it. I don't usually get too in depth with, like the factual books outside of like military history and so on and so forth. But this one, it's kind of a military history book, but it's obviously based on real life and real experiences and all of the men that he had in his platoon and other platoons and the stuff that they went through on the battlefield. I'm just going to tell you, it is a fascinating read, and I would highly recommend it if you are of a mind to get to at least give it a try out. That's Outlaw Platoon by Sean Parnell. It's old. I mean, it's an older book. He's done, 4 others since then, which are actual fiction books. And I'm about ready to start the first one here, hopefully before too long. But yeah, definitely I would say if you have any kind of an interest in gaining at least a glimpse into the mind of a warrior who has been to actual battle in the modern times, you should take a look at it and give it a good shot. So anyway, very impressive from my perspective, very impressive. And it gives me a different viewpoint on Sean himself. Okay. So let's go ahead and get the show started here with, of course, the Pledge of Allegiance. And tonight, the Pledge of Allegiance is going to be read by Judge Wild of Rumble. He also has his own show, by the way. He broadcasts, I think, 3 times a day during the week. And one of them in particular is called Intelligent Talk, and you can go and search that up. He only broadcasts for about 15 minutes, so he's not quite the glutton for punishment that I am. But anyway, so you can go and check that out. But here is Judge Wild with his version of the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat, and put your hand over your heart and join in with Judge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I thank you, Judge, for that rendition. If you would like to get your rendition, just record yourself saying the Pledge of Allegiance and send it on in to fans, F-A-N-S, that's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. That's F-A-N-S, fans at AmericanPerspective.online. And you can get that to me and I'll get you in the rotation. All right, so let's see. Tonight's sponsor, yes. I am wearing the Abe Lincoln version. I know you can't see Abe because he's all the way down here on my stomach. I can't stand up that tall for the camera, but here it's like the Liberty Bells on this side, and it says "We the People" on it, and that kind of stuff. But these are just fantastic shirts from theflagshirt.com. That's theflagshirt.com, and right now, I believe they're still running their Armed Forces Day sale, 50% off. And before you head over there, I highly recommend that you pick up a $5 coupon by going to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. You can get a coupon code that you can enter at checkout at theflagshirt.com. You can enter it at checkout and get $5 off your order. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. Get that $5 coupon code that you can enter at checkout at theflagshirt.com. And just remember, at theflagshirt.com, you can get patriotized. All right. So a couple of things. Well, I've been talking about this past several episodes. I've been talking about the non-citizens voting in our elections. And I've been showing you studies, facts, evidence that all points to the fact that this isn't a conspiracy theory that like the left would have you believe. This isn't a thing that the left wants to make go away. This is a good case study into why we need voter ID for all of our elections. Well, here, as an example, is an article in Just Facts. Now, I like Just Facts, justfacts.com. I like them. That's all they do is they just do facts. Well, there was a study that was done a few years ago. I think it was in like 2008? No, 2014. 2014, the academic journal Electoral Studies published a groundbreaking study by 3 scholars who estimated how frequently non-citizens were illegally voting. It was based on data for the 2008 presidential and congressional elections. And that particular study found that roughly 1/4 of non-citizens in the U.S. were likely registered to vote. Supposed to show my left shoulder? What are you talking about? So this is my left hand. Are you sure you want me to? That's the shoulder. I'll get it in a, hold on. Let's do this real quick. Just so we can get this out of the way. So there's the left shoulder of the thing. So there you go, Outlaw Dogs. Okay. Back to where we were. Okay, so in 2014, the academic journal published the study, and the study showed that roughly 1/4 of non-citizens in the U.S. were likely registered to vote. 6.4% of non-citizens actually voted, according to that. 81.8% of the ones that voted reported voting for Barack Obama. So this is why, I mean, this honestly is why you look at this bill that's coming up, that is reportedly going to come up about illegals voting in our elections. They're already doing it. And there's nothing that we can do about it if you don't know that it's happening. And you can't do that without ID verification. Now, they also stated in the report that illegal votes cast by non-citizens likely changed important election outcomes in favor of Democrats, including electoral college votes and a pivotal U.S. Senate race that enabled Democrats to pass Obamacare. Remember, this study was done based off of the 2008 election. The study's voter registration rate was estimated with data from two key sources: a national survey in which 14.8% of non-citizens admitted that they were registered to vote, and a database of registered voters that reveals what portion of the surveyed non-citizens were in fact registered, even though they claimed to be not registered. By combining this data, the author's best estimate, and there was 3 authors, by the way, best estimate was that 25.1% of non-citizens were illegally registered to vote, and roughly half of those are the ones that voted or have been shown to potentially vote. Yeah. Now, Just the Facts then conducted a comparable study that used the same data sets, but they used a little bit more of a straightforward methodology and related studies to constrain some of the assumptions that they said. And this particular one found that roughly 27% of non-citizens were registered to vote, and about 16% of them voted in the 2008 elections. So, folks, we have anywhere from 5% of the roughly 1/4 of non-citizens that were registered to vote, anywhere from roughly 5% to about 15% of them that actually voted. Folks, I don't know how the left can't sit here and it can sit there and say that, 2020 was the most secure election possible, because of the fact that, again, Fulton County, one singular county, they had over 3,000 ballots that were run twice through the machine illegally. The audit sheets that they had were 7 of them that they showed to the election commission, the Georgia Election Commission. 7 of them showed that they were 100% in the bank for Joe Biden, which was the incorrect count. And anyone who understands statistics knows that that is a statistical impossibility for that to happen. For 100% of any random stack of, in this case, votes, realistically, they should break along the same percentages that other stacks do in a sample size. They should be breaking about the same way. To have them go 100% to one candidate over another is statistically impossible. So, anyway, the point being here is that even like with the fact checks, so for an example, in this particular statement, scholars have repeatedly tried to dispute the original electoral studies paper as well as the Just Facts study, and their criticisms were mathematically illiterate, laced with unrealistic assumptions, empty arguments, half-truths, and outright falsehoods. And the Washington Post's lead fact checker, Glenn Kessler, claims to have uncovered new evidence that undercuts the result of the 2014 Electoral Studies paper and the Just the Facts research. This consists of a previously sealed expert report on non-citizen voting for a 2023 Arizona case, which a lot of people have been talking about in terms of that. Yeah, so it's, I mean, even if we had like a small percentage as close as what the last couple of elections have been, it's astronomically probable that not only did they vote, but that they potentially changed the outcome in some elections. Yeah, and even if they go at very, very low, even if we took like the 5% range, that's still an incredible amount of people that are voting illegally. So we have got to get our election system intact. The only way to do that, honestly, is to have voting ID verification. That's the only way to do that. So that's one thing for sure that's debunked as far as that goes. All right. We have another lie that the media have been saying and that Joe Biden has been saying that is now proven to be true. You remember that whole thing about the laptop and the Hunter Biden laptop, and there were so many people who were saying, oh, no, that's Russian disinformation. And then all of a sudden, Hunter Biden filed a lawsuit for the repair shop and said, hey, he illegally accessed my data. Well, guess what? That is exactly the same situation that we're in here. So Ashley Biden's diary was found at a rehabilitation center. And they went and whoever found it, the young lady that found it apparently went and sold it to Veritas. And Veritas went and published parts of it. And they ended up getting, James O'Keefe ended up getting in trouble, I guess, or something along those lines. But anyway, there was always the comment that, no, the Ashley Biden diary, it's not real. It's not real. And so the Ashley Biden diary has now been not only verified by the FBI, but even Ashley Biden admits that it's hers. And why? Because of the fact that she wrote a letter to the judge in the case of the person who is now facing jail time for supposedly stealing the diary. So the young lady, I'm going to call her young, I don't know how old she is, but the young lady who stole the diary, her sentencing is coming up, or it is, let's see, where is it? Anyway, Amy Harris, there we go. Amy Harris, who is the woman charged with stealing the diary, had been sentenced to a month in prison and 3 months home confinement for selling the diary to Project Veritas. Now, before that, though, there was a letter submitted to the judge, Judge Laura Taylor Swain, dated April 8th, 2024. And in that letter, Ashley Biden described all of the stuff that, was in the library, but also described all of the torment and everything else. Because usually this is what happens whenever somebody gets wronged in a situation and they go to sentencing. The person who is the victim has an opportunity to talk to the judge or address the judge, address the court in an attempt to either get more time or less time, depending upon what they say in front of the judge. Well, in this particular case, Ashley submitted a written letter. And inside that letter, she clearly claims the diary as hers. She clearly claims that the diary or the stuff that's been running around online and the information contained within it is factually correct in her case. And yet we hear crickets from the news media. And so, yeah, so the problem is, or the biggest piece out of all of this is the part where Ashley describes or questions whether or not she was molested, that she was hypersexualized and fearful of going to some house, and that she had potentially inappropriate showers with her father, Joe Biden. Now, she left it, again, in a rehab facility. It was found, okay, not stolen, but found after Ashley checked out. Or at least that's the story that the young lady who is sentenced now for the crime of it. So there's not a single thing from the left in terms of the mainstream media or anything who are even talking about this. It's nothing but crickets. Once again, here's another conspiracy theory that is no longer a theory. It's actually more of a spoiler alert. And I've kind of told you about these things. But as part of the diary, she details showing boys her underpants. Now, keep in mind, this is like when she was a child. And she just, here's a quote from it. Hypersexualized at a young age. What is this due to? Was I molested? I think so. I can't remember specifics, but I do remember trauma. I remember not liking and I'm not going to say the name, but these people's houses. I remember somewhat being sexualized with Caroline. I remember having sex with friends at a young age, showers with my dad, probably not appropriate, being turned on when I wasn't supposed to be. So this particular part of the diary is what's been running around. And this kind of scenario makes it, at least seriously calls into question whether or not Biden himself is a child molester and potentially had a very inappropriate and incestuous relationship with his daughter at a very young age. Now, you combine that with stuff like Pedo Pete, which is what was listed as Hunter Biden's identification of his dad in one of his text strings. And then you take a look at the fact that Joe Biden sniffs kids and that those kids oftentimes are shrinking away from him, that he has he's been caught on camera touching people in inappropriate ways, things of that nature. It all starts to add up. Where there's smoke, there's probably fire. This is not good old Grandpa Joe. And now the left can't sit here and talk about, ironically, can't talk about this whole idea of Trump being photographed with Jeffrey Epstein, which, by the way, all of the photos that they run around the net, the majority of them come from one singular public, very public party in which they both, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, are wearing the same clothes all the time. I mean, I don't see Donald Trump wearing the same pink tie all the time, with the same suit top. And then we also know factually that Trump did ride on Jeffrey Epstein's plane when it needed to go from Florida up to New York, or when he needed to go from Florida up to New York at times. So far, we have no idea. There is no indication that Trump actually went out to the supposed Lolita Island. And there's not even an inkling of him being on any of the flight logs going out that way. So there's literally nothing. And we also have, as I've brought up before, the whole idea of Trump kicking Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago when Epstein was caught hitting on one of the member's young daughter. Trump got rid of him. Trump also, and this is matter of public record, but Trump also was the first willing, very willing, witness for the Florida police. I think it was I don't know if it was the state police, but I know it was like the Florida police, not the FBI, in the very first Epstein case where he was brought up on charges for child trafficking and sex trafficking and stuff like that. But the left doesn't even talk about those things, doesn't mention them or anything else. And here now we have specific evidence from a potential victim of Joe Biden who outlines specifically some items and some things that could have been done to her at the time that she was young, I think 11 years old or whatever. And we're hearing nothing but crickets. Oh, don't forget, too, when Trump became president, he started a war on sex trafficking, which was part of the reason why he closed the border as quick as he did. But anyway, yeah, it's, just another conspiracy theory, wink, wink, turned reality, turned spoiler alert. Okay, so had something come out about Biden and Israel, which I will get to in just a moment. But first, let me explain this article here. This is from the Daily Caller. And we all know that Biden has a big challenge when it comes to foreign policy. He has never been right on an issue. He didn't want to go in after Osama bin Laden. Even when Obama decided to go and do it, Biden was not happy and said, no, I don't think this is a good idea. But now, once again, Biden has basically thrown our allies under the bus, and he has claimed that a invasion into Rafah, which for those of you that don't understand, Rafah is the last vestige of protection that the Hamas leadership and what's left of that terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip, they've taken cover there. In fact, they've got, as I told you about the story, I believe it was late last week, where they have, 10 to 12 hostages protecting the leader guy who orchestrated the October 7th attacks, and is like second in command in Hamas, because don't forget, Qatar has actually got the real Hamas leaders. They're holding them, or not holding them, but they're providing them shelter and safe haven over in Qatar. But anyway, Biden is claiming that the Rafah invasion wouldn't help Israel defeat Hamas. And there are several experts that have come out and been like, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it's no kidding, it doesn't make any sense. And these are several experts that talked to the Daily Caller News Foundation. The White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said on Thursday that Israel cannot achieve a sustainable and enduring defeat against Hamas by invading Rafah, also claiming that it could jeopardize ongoing negotiations to free the hostages in Gaza. Well, no kidding, but Hamas for the record, Hamas has broken off everything and has never said they would ever give up the hostages. They've never once said that. In fact, they've never once agreed to that. In fact, that's the one sticking point that they keep turning down. Every time they turn down a potential ceasefire agreement, that's the one thing that they always refuse to do. Experts told the Daily Caller News Foundation that the claim doesn't hold water, as a military operation is the only way to pressure Hamas into reaching a hostage deal and eventually achieve victory over the terror group. Kirby said, an enduring defeat of Hamas certainly remains the Israeli goal, and we share that goal with them. Bullshit. Smashing into Rafah, in Biden's view, will not advance that objective and will not get to that sustainable and enduring defeat of Hamas. Now, two high-level defense experts and a former senior U.S. official told the Daily Caller News Foundation that Kirby is mistaken and that the only way to ensure Hamas is defeated is through military operations. Mark Dubowitz, CEO of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, which is a Washington, D.C. based think tank, told the DCNF, Kirby is wrong. Only the Israeli Defense Forces' patient, well-planned, and well-executed operation has been successful in smashing Hamas and releasing hostages to date. The executive director of Polaris National Security and former State Department official Gabriel Noroa told the DCNF, you can't defeat Hamas with good vibes and nice words. You defeat them on the battlefield through munitions, through kinetic action. And this is true. See, a lot of people don't, and this is, I'm going to tie this in with the Outlaw Platoon book. What a lot of people don't understand is the Arabs that are over in that side of the world, they don't think like we do. They have a different set of rules that they operate off of. And until we as a country get to a point where we understand that, we're not going to be able to defeat these people. It was one of the challenges that we had with defeating and with attempting to defeat the Taliban. We went into Afghanistan thinking that we were going in with the idea that, you know, they would be accepting of Western culture and that they would be desiring us and desiring freedom and everything else. And we even had Pakistan as a supposed ally in the fight. Going to give away just a small little smidgen of Sean's book. There's a time where they find out that no, Pakistan is not necessarily the quote unquote ally that you would normally think of. Pakistan would be more like a Joe Biden ally, which is that they would help us when it is expedient and efficient for them, but otherwise they're not interested. And this is one of the challenges that we have with Western thinking. We can't believe that Hamas is going to treat everyone with respect like what we expect out of things like the Geneva Convention. It's not possible. Okay? It is literally not possible for them to be able to come to an agreement with us. Their culture doesn't allow for that kind of thing. Their religion doesn't allow for that kind of thing. And this is part of the reason why why we have such a big divide, even with like the pro-Palestinian protesters or pro-Hamas protesters that are going on right now. Those types of people and those folks only understand one thing, and that is power. That is force. That is strength. That's all they understand. Anything outside of that is viewed as weakness. And this is exactly why we are in the problem that we're in, because whenever the federal government, whenever the United States tries to look at a foreign entity, we look at them through our perceptions and our ideals, our values. We can't do that. And that, unfortunately, is the case right here. Israel has the right idea. Go in, save as many civilians as possible, make the impact as low-key on the civilians, because they're not necessarily interested in the civilians, even though 80% of the civilians over there support destroying and getting rid of Israel. That's 80% of the civilians in Gaza, for clarification. But the reality of it is that Israel doesn't want to do that. They've been very methodical, very careful, very cognizant of the world stage. But we as America need to let them do what they need to do in order to protect themselves and their border. We keep applying these ridiculous requests on Israel, and we're just going to end up tarnishing the relationship that we have with Israel. Now, come to find out that the Biden administration has actually been doing sort of a quid pro quo or a bribery scheme. Yeah, this report. The Biden admin is reportedly bribing Israel to not invade Rafah. So the Biden administration apparently has information. He's not only withholding vital munitions from Israel, but now he's holding intelligence, or I should say his administration, because let's face it, oatmeal brains doesn't have a freaking thought other than, do I need to poop now? And can I? Do I have enough Depends in order to do it? But anyway, a Washington Post report, this is a town hall report of the Washington Post report, revealed that President Joe Biden's administration is offering Israel valuable intelligence on the locations of Hamas leaders and the group's hidden tunnels if it refrains from attacking Rafah. This includes sensitive information that would help the Israeli military locate the Hamas leaders. The Biden administration's deal also includes providing thousands of shelters so that Israel can build tent cities, as well as providing assistance in the construction of delivery systems for food, water, and medicine, so that the Palestinians escaping Rafah could have a place to live. Here's a quote from the Washington Post. Biden aides are stressing to their Israeli counterparts that Palestinians cannot simply be moved to barren or bombarded parts of Gaza, but that Israel must provide basic infrastructure, including shelter, food, water, medicine, and other necessities. Okay, folks, I'm just going to toss this out here, people. There is a reason why the local Arab states, such as Egypt and Jordan, want nothing to do with the Palestinians. That's part of the reason why Egypt didn't take over Gaza when it was offered by the Israelis. It's also the reason why Jordan didn't take over the West Bank when offered by the Israelis. They don't want these people. They don't want it. They don't want them. Now, that being said, Israel has provided basically power and other necessities to the Gaza Strip ever since they got rid of or pulled out of the Gaza Strip in 2006, effectively handing over entire management of the Gaza Strip over to whoever the Palestinians decided to elect. Guess who they decided to elect? They elected Hamas. So this particular situation, I'm sorry, is of the Palestinians' own making. And even if you were to go into Gaza and talk to them today, they would tell you the same thing. They agree with Hamas. Overwhelmingly agree. 75 to 80% of people in Gaza, civilians, polled, wanted Hamas in and thought that Hamas did the right thing on October 7th. This is a group of people that have literally the hate and desire to destroy an entire nation state that is part of their border. Oh, they are, yeah. This is just ridiculous. This report came out after Biden warned Israel that the U.S. would stop supplying weapons to them if the Israeli Defense Forces launched an invasion into Rafah. D.C. bureaucrats have also urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to attack Rafah. Netanyahu has been saying and insisting that a ground invasion into the region is necessary. Yep, absolutely. Oh, so this is extremely hot. It's going to stay hot. And by the way, my own, not my alma mater, but here close to my location is the University of Washington over in, down in Seattle. And they currently have a Antifa and pro-Palestinian rally going on where they've taken over the quad, which is, obviously an open space between buildings. They've apparently taken over the quad in that area, and the police are being held back by the university administration from doing anything. Not saying that the Seattle Police Department would do anything, because let's face it, that's the entire city of Seattle is run by Democrat socialists. And I do put those together because they do have socialist tendencies, Marxist tendencies. They're not going to do anything. I guarantee it. And the pro-Palestinian crowd down there has already tagged several buildings with graffiti, several old buildings, beautiful buildings, and they've tagged them with graffiti, as per usual. Yeah. In fact, I think Charlie Kirk was down there this past weekend, and the pro-Palestinian crowd tried to, and the Antifa crowd tried to stop him from speaking, and that didn't work, thankfully. But, folks, this is just the start. The heat, this summer's heat hasn't even hit yet. And believe me, I have a very sneaking suspicion that just like the summer of love in 2020, but this is probably going to be much, much worse. Oh, so anyway, yeah, I agree with you, Tommy. They need to be rounded up and sent to Gaza. The ones that, not that I'm really looking to necessarily, wish harm on anybody, but at the same time, they need a reality check. They need to understand what they're actually getting in for. And that's why I always laugh when I see these groups like, Queers for Palestine, as an example. I don't care if you're queer or not. I really don't. But if you ended up going over to Palestine or going over to Gaza, you'd be tossed off a roof in like a matter of seconds getting over there. So, be proud of who you are, but understand that here in America and the other Western cultures, we are a lot more accepting of your situations than other places. All right. So do you remember Judge Engoron, Judge Arthur Engoron? Yeah, apparently he had an unsolicited conversation with a disbarred, I think he's disbarred. No, he once had his license suspended. Okay. and he's a controversial Manhattan lawyer. Well, now there's a probe. There's a probe into Judge Engoron for getting unsolicited advice on the Trump case. Uh-oh. What? What is this about? This is in the New York Post. A New York City lawyer sparks probe into Trump Judge Arthur Engoron over unsolicited advice on the civil fraud case. So the Manhattan lawyer, Admin Lightman Bailey, who had his law license suspended for 4 months in 2019 over the caught on tape tirade, claimed to NBC New York that he spoke with Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Arthur Engoron about the case 3 weeks before the judge issued his $455 million ruling against Trump in February. Bailey told the outlet on February 16th in an interview, "I actually had the ability to speak to him," Engoron, 3 weeks ago. "I saw him in the corner at the courthouse and told my client I need to go. I walked over and we started talking. I wanted him to know what I think and why. I really want him to get it right." The conversation sparked a probe by the New York Judicial Watchdog Organization, the State Commission on Judicial Conduct, a source told the NBC New York outlet. So according to law, a judge can't initiate, permit, or consider communications about cases outside the presence of all parties in the matter. So a judge, according to law, can obtain the advice of a disinterested expert as long as the parties, and that's both parties, are told ahead of time and are given the chance to respond to it, according to the state rules on judicial conduct. Well, Bailey said that he told Engoron his opinion on the fraud statute at the center of the New York Attorney General Letitia James case against Trump. He's apparently a real estate lawyer. He claimed that he explained to the judge that he didn't believe the statute could be used to take a major company such as the Trump Organization out of business, particularly if the case didn't have obvious victims. The guy says he had a lot of questions, about certain cases. We went over it, he said of the discussion with Engoron. So Al Baker, who is apparently a spokesman with the state courts, denied to NBC that Engoron and Bailey actually had any kind of conversation about it. Baker said in a statement to the outlet, "No ex parte conversation concerning this matter occurred between Justice Engoron and Mr. Bailey or any other person. The decision on February 16th was Engoron's and his alone, was deeply considered and was wholly uninfluenced by this individual." Yeah, the SCJC couldn't confirm whether there was a probe into the exchange because of confidentiality, which doesn't really surprise me any. Well, it'll be interesting if that actually pans out. If it does, that'd be awesome, because that would be just another reason for things to go awry. Speaking of going awry, we all know that Cohen, Michael Cohen, was testifying today, which, keep in mind, the guy's a convicted perjurer. In fact, he's already been referred to the DOJ by Jim Jordan and James Comer for lying to Congress or committing perjury to Congress. So, yeah, Michael Cohen is not what I would consider to be a reliable witness. Okay. But apparently on Friday, a paralegal, and this is in the Federalist, but a paralegal testified that Alvin Bragg's office tampered with evidence that he brought to this case. Now, for those of you that don't understand what a paralegal is somebody who is not an attorney, but spends a lot of time working with attorneys, doing things, mundane things for the most part, like researching court cases and doing mundane things like bringing up and writing briefs for the lawyer and so on and so forth. So this person, this paralegal, would be in a position to actively be a part of that particular case and know what the heck is going on with Alvin Bragg in his office. Now this person testified on Friday that his office, meaning Bragg's office, deleted from their evidence 3 total pages of phone records between convicted liar Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels' lawyer Keith Davidson without notifying former President Donald Trump's legal team, according to the reports. Trump attorney Emil Bove questioned paralegal Jaden Jamal Schneider on Friday about 3 pages of 2018 phone records between Davidson and Cohen that Bragg's office had deleted. And this is according to CNN, folks, a left-wing outlet. This isn't a right-wing outlet creating this. This is CNN saying this. Additional phone records between Daniels' manager, Gina Rodriguez, and then National Enquirer editor Dylan Howard regarding Daniels' claim about her alleged affair were also deleted, according to the Epoch Times. So then the altered call records were then submitted into evidence, but Bragg's office did not tell the Trump team that 3 pages were missing, according to the Epoch Times. Oh my gosh, this is just absolutely horrible. And New York Consolidation Law's Penal Law 215.40 states in part that a person is guilty of tampering with physical evidence when believing that certain physical evidence is about to be produced or used in an official proceeding or prospective official proceeding, and intending to prevent such production or use, he suppresses it by any act of concealment, alteration, or destruction by employing force, intimidation, or deception, or by employing force, intimidation, or deception against any person. So in other words, that's a Class E felony. So Alvin Bragg's office just committed a Class E felony in the preparation for this Donald Trump case. Yeah, these guys, I just got to tell you, they're just absolutely ridiculous. Oh, and Michael Cohen, I know the left is like just absolutely thrilled over the fact that Michael Cohen testified today. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what comes out. I'm kind of waiting on the condensed versions of that. But we also know, I mean, again, keep in mind, Michael Cohen just by himself is a convicted liar. So his being the star witness in this case, being the star witness in this case really is really going to be kind of disappointing, honestly, if the jury actually takes this to heart. Because again, I mean, we were talking to Stormy Daniels and she provided literally nothing to support the charges against Trump, which had to deal with bookkeeping errors and bookkeeping issues. And all she did was talk about the illicit affair, which, by the way, Bill Maher questioned because back in 2018, apparently he questioned her or had her on his program. And the description of the encounter was completely, well, I won't say completely, but was markedly different between her description in 2018 and what she gave on the stand. So, I mean, anybody who is halfway, anybody that has a brain on this jury, they should just say, you know what, we're done. We're not going to convict this guy for what is amounting to a bunch of bullshit. digging through. So one last thing really quick here toward the end of the program before I go. You know that whole Biden voter mobilization executive order that I kind of talked about in conjunction with the illegals voting? Well, you know, I mentioned that it's potentially unconstitutional for the government to be working on the side of one particular political party over another. I mean, they can do things like get out the vote, but they can't go and favor one particular side over another. Well, I actually, and this was referred to as Biden bucks for the whole thing, and that got him to where now several members of Congress are looking into it. Well, there's another law that Biden could have broken with this. And in particular, this is talking about the USDA, which why the USDA would be interested in voting. I mean, I'm sure it has everything to do with the fact that the White House said, you know, every federal agency has to help. But anyway, according to this piece in the Daily Signal, Biden's order on turning out the vote for elections could violate what's called the Anti-Deficiency Act, a law that has three parts to it. So here's the three parts to this thing. It prohibits federal employees from obligating tax dollars not authorized by Congress. It prohibits officials from not spending money as appropriated by Congress. And it prohibits agencies from accepting voluntary service from individuals. So in other words, you can't volunteer to work for the government. You can't not spend money that government or that Congress in particular has given you, which that makes like literally no sense. I don't understand why that would be a problem. Yeah, we're going to save money for the government. No. You have to spend that money, which I actually understand. Being in the military, that was one of the things that we did, is that toward the end of the budgetary year, if we hadn't used up the budget yet, they would go through and be like, hey, we've got to spend the money or otherwise we're not going to get it next year. So we got to make sure we spend all the money. Is there anything broken on your vehicles that we need to get fixed? Anyway, I'm sure that was like prior to all of this. But the other big one is that it prohibits federal employees from obligating tax dollars not authorized by Congress. This is an executive order that he's put out. This isn't like a congressional law. There's two different ways that things can get done in government, and actually the executive order is supposed to only be a modification of an existing law in so far as, you know, maybe like direction of how the law is supposed to be executed. It's not supposed to be a broad blanket, you know, oh, I'm the president and I say funds and things have to be done this way, which is exactly what happened with the whole OSHA thing that he got slapped down for thanks to the Daily Wire. But his controversial Executive Order 14019 requires federal agencies to participate in voter registration activities and to help third-party organizations perform those activities on agency premises. So potentially, this could involve spending government funds, contracting with those third parties for the payment of those funds, or accepting voluntary services for these approved, in quotes, approved, third-party organizations. So he could be breaking this law, this Anti-Deficiency Act, by that executive order. I've said on multiple occasions, folks, that Joe Biden is the most unconstitutional president that we have had in modern history, if not in all of history. The guy does not respect the Constitution. He does not respect the separation of powers, and he does not respect the Supreme Court and its position within it. This is just another example. Oh, I sincerely hope that what we believe is going to happen in November happens. We cannot afford 4 more years of this guy. We really can't. All right, that's it for me for tonight. Do me a favor, if you haven't done so already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account, and sign up. It's free. And then once you are there, make sure that you are following the American Perspective channel. And Outlaw Dogs, I showed the New Jersey Wildwood crowd on Saturday. So it was part of it was like the first thing that I did. If you are already on Rumble, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, or the thumbs up, the like. And if you are of mind, go ahead and comment, because I've heard both will help elevate these videos and my channel to get more attraction on the Rumble platform. Otherwise, we will see you guys tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the American Perspective with Rick Thomas show. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.